Hello. Welcome back to another episode of High Self Club podcast. My name is Shay. I am your host. And on this podcast, we're talking all things mindset, manifestation, personal growth, expanding into your higher self to become magnetic to all of your deepest desires. And I'm taking you on my own personal journey of creating the lifestyle that I deeply desire, in the hope that I can collapse the time it takes for you to get from where you are to where you want to go. So I honestly think that if you just listen to this episode and apply what we're going to go through in this episode, then you're probably set for the year. If you just follow these steps, life will change in a very dramatic way. And to be honest, it's probably a lot of stuff that you have probably heard before. But there's a difference between us learning and hearing and then really putting it into action. And I know for me, I've been a serial learner in the past. I listen to all the podcasts, do all the courses, I've spent so much money on personal development courses, but I wasn't taking action. And over the last year, last year, I did not buy one course. I just fully focused on taking action and integrating everything that I've learned, and my entire life changed. So just prefacing with that, but I have some really actionable steps for you in this podcast. And if you take them, I promise magical things will start to happen. So over the last, say, decade of my personal development journey, I've often heard the term self-love thrown around. And in all honesty, I'd think, nah, I've got that down. I respect myself. I don't hate myself. I'm good. But the truth was, I didn't fully understand what self-love truly meant. And it wasn't until I dove deeper into the concepts that I realized that self-love isn't just a feel-good buzzword. It is literally the foundation for everything. Your finances, your relationships, your career, your potential are all profoundly impacted by the love that you have for yourself. It ripples into every corner of your life. So if you focus on cultivating a strong sense of self-love, everything else falls into place. It is literally the most important topic when it comes to personal development. If you literally do nothing else other than work on building a strong sense of self-love, you're genuinely sorted. It impacts everything. And in case you can't tell, I'm pretty passionate about this topic now. So it just makes me sad because so many people are lacking this beautiful force within themselves. And I so deeply want for everyone to feel this. The world would be a much more beautiful place if everyone truly loved themselves. So today I want to dive into self-love, what it actually is, how you can work on cultivating it for yourself. And I promise you, if you follow these steps, that if you commit to this work, your entire life will change. And the only reason that you are not where you want to be is because there's some area where you're lacking the self-love required to take action. When you love yourself, you communicate to the universe, I am worthy of success. I deserve a life that I love. And then that is what you'll receive. So this belief is essential to manifestation. Self-love shapes how you allow others to treat you, how you treat yourself, and then also how willing you are to take risks and embrace new opportunities. It really is the foundation for creating a life that is fulfilling and expansive. So we are so quick as humans to extend love and to support others, such as our friends, our family, our partners. Yet for many of us, it feels deeply uncomfortable to offer that same kindness and compassion to ourselves. And it is a lack of self-love that is the driving force behind our behaviors that cause us pain, such as staying in toxic relationships, pursuing emotionally unavailable partners, our self-sabotaging patterns, body shaming, settling for unfulfilling careers, or feeling paralyzed by self-doubt. And it is also the reason we fall into the trap of tying our worth to external achievements, thinking, oh, once I get that promotion or once I lose 10 kilos, then I'll be worthy. But here's the truth. You are already worthy. You are already enough right here, right now. And that's the truth. But how come so many of us don't feel this way? So, firstly, let's talk about what self-love actually is. It is hard to define in one sentence, so let's break it down. So, I believe self-love is a number of things. I believe it is truly valuing your own happiness and well-being. It is showing up for yourself and believing in your own abilities. Self-love is speaking kindly to yourself, offering encouragement and understanding to yourself that we so easily offer to other people. Self-love is embracing the most authentic version of you that could exist, flaws and all. And self-love is offering yourself the same level of kindness and patience and forgiveness and compassion that you just so easily give to others. And for many of us, self-love doesn't come naturally, and it's something that we need to cultivate intentionally with practice. And this practice truly is more important now than ever before. So there's this book called Raising Girls Who Like Themselves by Casey Edwards and Christopher Scanlon. And they talk about research that found that in Australia at the moment, nearly 1 in 5 girls aged 16 to 17 meet the criteria for clinical depression, and anxiety disorders are 1 in 14. And what really upset me to read was that over half of girls as young as 8 and 9 years old reported feeling dissatisfaction with their bodies. More than half of 10-year-old girls were already trying to control their weight. Like, what the actual fuck? This isn't something that is coming naturally to these little girls either. It is something that they learn. And no prizes for why you think that this might be happening. So obviously we are constantly bombarded with perfected images and impossible standards through social media. So it's likely to only get worse now as well with the rise of AI. And beauty and fashion industries push these standards, feeding off these insecurities. There is always someone more beautiful with more money who is smarter or living this more exciting life being pushed in our faces. It's difficult to remember that everything we see is obviously not necessarily real. And of course, social media plays a part, but in saying that, these challenges with self-love, they existed way long before technology. So if you struggle with your own self-esteem or your confidence or self-image, it's important to remember that it is not your fault. You are a result of your conditioning. So we are born into this world full of self-love. Then we are conditioned and we are programmed by family and other caretakers, societal expectations and pressures, our local environment, our culture. And then as you go about your day and you experience thoughts that stem from this programming, that leads to feelings in your body, which leads to the actions that you then go and take. So this shows that how your behavior is a result of a mind that you did not actually create. And although it is not your fault that you might be lacking this feeling of self-love, it is your responsibility to take control of who you are, to take control of the actions that you take in this world. It is your responsibility to rewrite the narrative. So to build self-love, we must confront the past and clear the blocks that hold us back. So often a lack of self-love stems from early experiences, perhaps, for example, learning that love was conditional or transactional. So these different subconscious wounds that we all experience shape the beliefs that drive your behaviors today. So going back and healing these wounds, it requires introspection, it requires effort, but it is some of the most transformative work that you could do. So within my 12-week program, the Expansion Project, we explore these subconscious patterns. We rewrite the beliefs that no longer serve you and create a roadmap for your dream life. So loving yourself at the deepest level, it bridges the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. So that's one of my favorite things to do with clients, is do this kind of work. In saying that, there are some practical steps that you can take right now to begin implementing and cultivating this deeper sense of self love with your life to improve your relationship with yourself. So let's go through those now. So, step one is to befriend your inner critic. So, one of the most powerful ways that you can begin to foster a deep sense of self love right now is to become aware of and to manage your inner critic. So, we all have this little voice in our head that's constantly talking to us. The way that you speak to yourself stems from those inner programs and beliefs that were formed when you were a child. So, for many of us, that voice can be quite mean and judgmental. And if left unchecked, that voice begins to create a really hostile environment in your mind. So, the way that you speak to yourself, it is extremely powerful. The thoughts that you have determine the way that you feel, and the way that you feel determines your frequency, which determines what you're magnetizing into your life. So if you don't learn how to work with the inner critic, you may never get to the same frequency as the thing that you're wanting to manifest or create, or the life that you're wanting to create. Also, keep in mind that your subconscious mind cannot differentiate a truth from a lie. So if you say to yourself over and over, I'm not good enough, your subconscious will take that as truth, and then it will find evidence within your life to support that truth, which then goes and strengthens that unsupportive belief. So how do we work with this inner critic to break up these unhelpful thought patterns? It can be helpful, firstly, to keep in mind that this inner critic just wants to fit in. It wants to be loved. It wants to be safe. This inner critic is coming from a place of survival, because as humans, we survived through being overcritical and doubtful. To begin working with your inner critic, what I really love to do is to firstly name that inner critic. Give your inner critic a name. So I like to call mine Brittany. So notice when you're speaking harshly to yourself, catch yourself, and then speak to that negative voice as if it's someone else. So this begins to create separation between you and those negative thoughts. So when I notice those thoughts come up in my mind that tell me that I can't do something, that I'm not good enough, I'm like, oh, Brittany, not you again, for example. So it's really, really helpful. And then once you notice those thoughts, you can begin to question the truth of them. So that's step two. Replace thoughts like, for example, I'm not good enough with I am courageous for trying, or I am good enough. And then step three is to choose the higher perspective, which is similar to step two. But that's what, instead of listening to that inner critic, you're asking yourself, what would my higher self think about this situation? So just to recap on those three steps, firstly, you're naming your inner critic. Next, you're questioning the truth, if that thought is actually true or not. And then step three is you're choosing that higher perspective. So for example, let's say you go to a dance class for the first time. This is something that I'm wanting to do this year, and I'm very nervous about it. So you're wanting to go to a dance class. You're nervous, but you made this commitment to yourself to get out of your comfort zone. Then your inner critic pops in as you start the class. It says things like, oh, you're seriously embarrassing yourself. You suck. Why would you even bother? So at this point, catch yourself and you can name your inner critic. For example, Brittany. Oh, Brittany's here. So catch her as she speaks. Then step two is question the truth of the matter. So in this instance, you realize that you're not embarrassing yourself. It's a dance class. After all, people actually come to learn to dance. Everyone has to start somewhere. And then step three, choose your perspective. So you realize that you are brave for taking the class and that everyone has to start somewhere, and you're proud of yourself. So you might say something like, I am stepping into my feminine power and I am having fun being a beginner. As you go through this process, be gentle with yourself. It takes practice to be aware of your thoughts, to catch yourself when they are being unsupportive, and then to pick a new perspective. So when you stick to doing this, you will start to rewire your brain, and eventually you will start thinking in that more positive, more empowered voice naturally, rather than defaulting to that inner critic. While we may never silence that voice completely, learning to recognize it and recognizing the negative impact that it has over our lives, it helps us to turn down its volume rather than believing it as truth all the time. So this does require effort. It requires persistence, which is an act of self-love in itself. So that's step one, working with the inner critic. Now, step two is embracing your shadow. So building self-love, it means loving all parts of you, including those parts that you would rather deny, that you would rather push down, those parts of you that you want to hide from the world. So these parts of yourself that you want to keep hidden from the world, that you are often actually not consciously aware of, these parts of yourself are called your shadow. So revealing and integrating your shadow side can be a powerful and life-changing process. So you might be thinking, well, if you're not consciously aware of your shadow, how can you discover it? So a simple way for you to bring your shadow into the light and to become aware of these aspects of yourself is through looking at the judgments that you make on other people. So every time that you make a judgment on somebody else, it is very likely that that's coming from your shadow. So whatever you are judging about the other person is something that you are rejecting within yourself. By accepting these parts of yourself, you integrate your whole being and you realize that all parts of you are worthy of love. So that is step two, working with your shadow. Step three is regulating your nervous system, something that I have found to be incredibly supportive on my own journey to building self-love within myself is working with my nervous system. When you are stressed, when you're anxious, and when you're living in this constant state of fight or flight, your inner critic is loud. One of the most powerful ways to quieten this voice and to choose more empowering thoughts is through calming the body. A calm body leads to a calm mind, and you're thinking more rationally. When you're in a stress state, you're constantly doubting yourself, you're constantly overthinking because your body literally thinks your life is in danger. So it feeds you all of these thoughts to make sure that you stay alive. It's literally a survival mechanism. Simply by moving into a state of calm, these thoughts are going to be much less intense. You're going to be more in touch with your intuition, and life is going to feel so much more nourishing. There are many ways that you can work with balancing your nervous system. Some of my favorites are through breath work, meditation, exercise and movement, and EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, or tapping. It's when you tap on your meridian points. Love that technique and modality. These are all modalities that we explore within my 12-week program too. So that is step two, working with your nervous system. Another way to practice self-love is through setting boundaries. So boundaries are acts of self-love that protect your energy. So do you ever stay at a social event longer than you would like to? Or do you ever say yes to requests that don't suit you? Or are you ever, for example, pressured to drink alcohol when you don't want to? So this is all examples of your boundaries being crossed. So boundaries are the rules that we create to respect our limits and to communicate our needs to others really clearly. So although setting boundaries at times can feel uncomfortable, they are a powerful protector of your energy. Whilst there can be fear or worries about being perceived by others as selfish for setting a boundary, your relationships will strengthen through clear communication and mutual respect. They will become deeper and stronger, and you will stop seeking validation from others because you can provide it for yourself. So you can actually see my last podcast episode on boundaries to learn how to set them effectively. So this is a really powerful way to build self-love through protecting your energy, through really prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your well-being. Next, a beautiful way to build self-love is through living in alignment. So this is probably the greatest act of self-love I would say I've worked on for myself, and that is to intentionally create a life that is in alignment with my values. Unfortunately, many of us are living a life because of the expectations of family or society. We are told to go to university and study for 4 years, to be in an industry that you don't even know if you'll like, and before you know it, you have a $50,000 study debt and you feel obliged to continue on a career that you hate. And so many people stay on this path because it is scary doing something else. So, one of the top 5 regrets of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not for the expectations of others. So, when you are living authentically and not for the expectations of others, you become magnetic. Your confidence grows and life feels expansive, life feels inspiring. And this is something that I am obsessed with supporting my clients through in the expansion project, because life is meant to feel beautiful and expansive and inspiring and magical. I truly believe that that is possible for everyone. You just have to give yourself permission to have that. And the stories that we tell ourselves about why we can't have that, they're just stories. They are not real. You inherently deserve to be cherished, loved, and accepted by others, but that begins by treating yourself that way. A beautiful way that you can do this is through following your joy, is through aligning your life with what is important to you. Something important to also mention about this journey is that building self-love requires commitment and discipline. Whether it's rewriting negative thoughts or setting boundaries or making aligned choices, these acts, they demand consistency. An example is when your alarm goes off in the morning to go to gym and you have that conversation in your mind. You say to yourself, should I get up or should I have another hour of sleep? And it's during these moments, it can be helpful to ask yourself the question, okay, what is the most self-loving decision that I could make right now? These decisions are all about honoring where you're at today as well as where you want to be tomorrow. So if in this moment you're feeling a bit crap, you're a bit sleep deprived, you can allow yourself to rest with no guilt. And this is an act of compassion. Otherwise, if you're feeling okay, then you would push yourself, which is an act of self-discipline. So knowing when to honor your needs versus when to challenge yourself is such a key to self-growth. And then it's also very important to celebrate yourself along the way. So we find it so easy to celebrate the people around us. We love to celebrate the people around us, but we rarely stop to celebrate ourselves. So do you ever find that when you achieve a goal, you immediately look towards the next thing? Rarely do we take the time to be proud of ourselves and to look at how far we've come. And this isn't about being cocky or egotistical. You can be modest and still celebrate yourself. So you can do this by sharing your wins with the people closest to you who you know are really supportive of you. And something that I suggest as well is to make a list in your notes on your phone of achievements. These can be big achievements, small achievements, and become your own biggest cheerleader. Become your own biggest cheerleader. Celebrating yourself will also help you to gain more momentum in your life. And it's just so important to celebrate yourself. I also want to touch on forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big one, and forgiveness is a profound act of self-love. Holding on to resentment, whether towards others or towards past versions of yourself, it only keeps you stuck. So by releasing this burden, you free yourself to move forward with compassion and to move forward with grace. Forgiveness, it often isn't even about the other person. It's about you and giving yourself that freedom. So this journey, it's a big journey. You can see that there's a lot that goes into it, and cultivating self-love, it's an ongoing process. So I wanted to share with you a couple more strategies to help you really anchor this transformation in yourself. So I believe that going on a deep self-discovery journey, discovering your values, your desires, and your fears is a really important part of this process. By knowing what you value, you're able to build a life that feels meaningful, that feels aligned. So this is a big part of the journey within the expansion project. Through the first week or two is really getting such clarity around who you are and what you want. And I guess it makes sense, because when you know yourself and you know what's important to you, then you can start prioritizing these things. And that is such a great act of self-love. You can begin by using journal prompts, such as things like journaling on what makes me feel alive, or what am I afraid to admit about myself. So these kinds of journal prompts can offer really profound insights. Journaling is such a great tool for self-discovery. We can also touch on as well rituals for self-care. So obviously true self-care goes beyond bubble baths and face masks. It's really about nurturing your emotional and physical well-being. So developing daily rituals like meditating, like savoring your meals without distractions, or taking a few moments each day to breathe and to deeply connect with your body can be really beautiful as well. And it's only these small practices that you need to do where you will notice a profound difference. Surrounding yourself with people who are supportive of you is a big one. So the people you spend time with really do influence your sense of self. So surrounding yourself with people who uplift you and encourage you, and distancing yourself from relationships that drain your energy or perpetuate self-doubt. So this also comes back to boundaries as well. It's okay sometimes to have those friendships or that, aren't necessarily the most energizing, but just making sure you have boundaries surrounding those. Also celebrate your uniqueness. So self-love flourishes when you embrace what makes you unique. So by reflecting on the qualities that you admire about yourself and reminding yourself that there's no one else like you can really help you to celebrate yourself. So what you might see as imperfections are often the traits that make you most memorable and make you most magnetic. And then also making peace with your body. This is a big one. Your body is your home. Building a healthy relationship with it requires shifting from a place of judgment to one of gratitude. So instead of focusing on how it looks, appreciate all that it does for you. Movement practices, well, like yoga or dance, can really help you to embody this and to reconnect with your body in a really loving way. Another great act of self-love is to invest in yourself. So whether that be through personal development programs, coaching, or simply taking the time to even learn a new skill, taking the time to invest in yourself sends a really clear message to your subconscious that says, I am worth it. Growth requires energy and resources, but the returns are immeasurable, and you are worth it. You do deserve that for yourself. I could keep going on, but it is important to remember that the journey to self-love, it's not linear. It requires deep introspection, patience, and persistence. It can be really uncomfortable at times. But as you embrace your authentic self, when you embrace your insecurities and struggles and all of it, everything that comes with it, you will transform your life in the most beautiful way. And you do deserve a life that feels expansive, that feels joyful and inspiring. Give yourself permission to create that. The world needs you to step into your power and to shine your light, starting with the love that you give to yourself. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope that you got something out of it. I love you, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye for now. Before you go, would you like my free magnetic morning breathwork class? This is the exact 5-minute ritual that I use every morning to start my day with clarity and energy and focus. In just 5 minutes, you will shift your state, release any stagnant energy or emotions you might be holding on to so you can step into your day feeling powerful and magnetic. Breathwork has absolutely transformed my life, and I would love for you to experience its incredible benefits too. So if you're ready to feel the shift, click the link in the show notes and grab it now. Enjoy, and I'll see you on the next episode.